So this is a demo of the STI Canada project. We're going to go through this project from start to finish, showing off all the different user roles, all the different features, all the connection properties, etc. We'll start off, we have 3 user roles. We have an administrator, a building owner, and a maintenance worker. We'll go through each user and how they can interact with the application. To start with, we'll go with an administrator. So we have these users already created. Let's just log in as the administrator. Wait for that in a sec. There we go. So the administrator configures the overall connections and relations and all the different processes of the application here. So we can see we'll start off with a list of buildings. The administrator can view all the buildings that are registered for your application. So we can see we already have a demo building here. It's got a fake address. You can add a new building if you want to. You can give it a name, email, phone number, opening, closing time, and its address there. If you want to edit the building, you can hit the options here. You can edit the building, you can change the properties it already has, or you can delete the building. Deleting the building will also delete everything inside it, which we'll get to in a sec. As you can see by this warning here, all of its children will be deleted. Or you can add a floor to this building. So if we actually expand this building here, we can see it already has 3 floors. It's got a ground floor, floor 2, floor 3. We can even expand these floors. So say ground floor has rooms, and each room has a unit. Floor 2, floor 3, for instance, they don't have any rooms, so it just shows no items found. If I also wanted to edit the floor, say it's the same process as the building, click the little cog, edit the floor. There we go, you can see all the information you can edit, or you can delete the floor, which again will also delete every room and every unit in that room, so again, be careful when you're deleting these things as administrator. Lastly, if you want to add, say, a new room to this floor, same process, click the cog, add a room, and you can give it a new room. And the same thing here, if you want to add a unit to this room, go ahead, edit, delete room, or add a unit, it's the same process. Unit is the lowest level, so if you hit the cog here, you can edit the unit, delete the unit, but you can't add anything beyond the unit. It is the lowest level. Lastly, we have options to search for buildings here, so if I wanted to say just look for demo building, I can just type it in, demo building, and it shows up. I can also do a deep search tree in the tree, so if I wanted to say search for Office A, for example, Office A, you can see that shows up. So a deep tree search support is added as well. So that's it for the buildings page. We'll move on to the next page, which is our devices. And devices is where the administrator can actually come in and configure, manage all the different like HVAC or other devices within this application. So you see we already have one registered here. It's got a name HVAC1, it's got a unique identifier, it's marked as simulated. We'll get to this in a sec. A simulated device just means it's not a physical device, it's not a real device, it's a simulated one, and we use this for testing purposes, which will actually show off in this demo. So if we expand the device here, we can see it's got a QR code, and this is useful for example, if you wanted to copy or download this QR code, print it off, and then like paste it onto the device itself, and then later scan it. You can get like the identifier about the device, you can view information about it, etc. We can see there's some details about this device, such as its update interval. So right now this device is configured to send data updates every 10 seconds. In a realistic scenario, it'll probably be, say, every hour or so, but this is configurable, which we'll see in a sec. We can also see an active start date. This is the date when this device was first turned on, which is currently not turned on. And the last update, which was when the device was last updated, which again, it hasn't done any yet. If we actually head over to this map option here, this is where we can assign a device to a building, for instance. So we can see we've got our HVAC1 device. We can assign it, for example, Unit A of Office A of the ground floor of the demo building. If we had multiple buildings, for instance, we can filter here and search for the building name, or you can also sort by floor or sort by room. So say if I want to look for just Office A, if I put Office A, apply that, it'll only show me Office A. So let's actually do that. Let's clear the filter here. I'll assign it to Office A. Let's do that. There we go. We can even see it here. Assigned unit, it's in Unit A, Office A of the ground floor. If I expand it, you can actually see it's even more detailed. It gives the full location details. It's inside demo building on the ground floor in Office A of Unit A. If I actually do this again, you can see if I try to assign it, it'll show that's where it's currently located. If I actually hit the unassigned option here, it'll go back to being unassigned and not belonging to any building. So now that this device is assigned to this building, any users in this building can actually see this device listed, which we'll see later on in this demo. Beyond that, we can also edit and delete devices, and add a device as well. So let's actually go ahead and add a new device. We'll do a simulated device to see how this works. So we can say HVAC 2 can be the name. Excuse me. We'll mark this as simulated again because this is not a real device. The update interval defaults at every 1 hour. We'll leave it at that. So every 1 hour, this device will send an update, and we'll leave it at this. So its identifier, its connection string automatically generated. You don't really need to know about the connection string. That's purely just for system administrator purposes. We'll leave it at that. That's fine. Submit. There we go. So now, if we actually come here and edit, we can see that identifier, we can see that connection string. Again, this is purely just for interaction purposes. For the most part, the administrator shouldn't need to change this at all. And the identifier is unique, it actually can't be changed. But if we want to change the update interval, we can say instead of 1 hour, it could be every 30 minutes. If we set that, there we go. So now this device is set to do updates every 30 minutes instead of every 1 hour. And it's currently not assigned anywhere, so we'll just leave it as is for now. We'll move on to the roles page here. This is the smallest page really. This just lists all the different user roles that each users have in this application. For the most part, this is never going to change. It's just going to be these 3 roles here, but if ever the need comes, administrators can come in, add a role. They can give a new role name, they can edit an existing role, change the name, or they can delete an existing role if it's no longer needed. But again, these are going to be unchanged for the most part. Next, let's head over to the users page. This is where the administrator can manage all the different users that are registered in the application. So we see we have all these 3 users here, which we'll get to all of them in a sec. Let's actually we'll filter the users here. We can actually filter by the roles. If we want to look only for administrators, there's only the administrators. If we want to look for only building owners, there's only the building owners, and only the maintenance workers, there's only the maintenance workers. Beyond that, the administrator can actually edit the profiles of users. If we expand this, if I expand my current profile here, we can see it says my profile is active, I am an administrator role, and I am not assigned to any building. A profile being active just means it allows the user to log in with this profile. If it's not active, then they can't log in. So another thing the administrator can do is give users multiple profiles. So say this building owner here, we see this user is a building owner role and they're assigned to demo building, which we saw before. We can give this user multiple profiles. So maybe they're the building owner, but they're also a maintenance worker, for instance. So we can do that, add a profile as a maintenance worker in demo building, and we can set it active. So now, when this user logs in, they'll have both the features of both these roles, and they can interact with both of them, for instance. Just for simplicity's sake for this demo, though, we'll leave it with just building owners so we can see each individual user features as they go. So let's delete their profile here. There we go. Beyond that, the administrator can also add a new user if they need to. They can give it email, a password, last and first name, whether their email is verified or not. They can edit the user information here, so if I want to edit building owner's information, I can do that. If I want to delete this user, I can do that. If I want to reset this user's password as an administrator, I can do that as well with this option. You can also edit their existing profiles or delete their existing profiles, just standard user administration stuff here. Okay. Next up, let's head over to the data thresholds tab here, and this is one of the main features of this project. Let's actually open up this little hub icon here, which explains what data thresholds are. So this tells data thresholds are a way to tell our HVAC devices in general what rules they should apply to when they're reading data. So we have a global threshold here, for instance, and we can see it's got a minimum temperature range of 45 degrees Celsius and a minimum pressure range of 630 psi. So because this is a global threshold, all of the HVAC devices by default will be adhered to this threshold. If they ever read temperature that's below 45 degrees Celsius or below 630 psi, the application will send out a notification to all users that are in the building with that device to let them know that, hey, there's probably maintenance needed on this device. Beyond that, the administrator can also edit this threshold if needed. So say the minimum threshold shouldn't be 45 degrees, it should be 50, for instance. We can change that. we'll just leave it as is, as 45. We can even give it maximum and temperature and pressure as well. So if the device reads a temperature beyond whatever value we put here, or pressure beyond whatever value we put here, a notification will also be sent out to users that insofar will be needed. Is active, it just means that this threshold is applied. So whenever data is being evaluated, it will use the active threshold. If it's not active, for instance, then this threshold is not used. But since this is the global one, you pretty much want this to be active at all times. Beyond that, you can also add custom thresholds. So there might be like any niche cases, for instance, where you have specific devices that you don't want to adhere to this global threshold. You can add a custom threshold here then. Somewhere we can say my example threshold, and you can give it its own minimum and maximum value. So say maybe it should be 30 here for temperature and 50 degrees Celsius for max temperature. Min pressure could be, let's say, 500 psi, max could be 800 psi. It's really up to you. And again, you can set it active. If it's not active, it defaults back to global. We'll submit that. You can see that shows up here. We can expand this, and then we can start assigning devices to this threshold. If we add a device, we can see there's those two devices that we have here. So now if I add HVAC2 there, we'll select that. Now whenever HVAC2 starts running, whenever it reads temperature and pressure data, it will only send out notifications if it falls beyond the range of this temperature and this pressure and not the global one. If we again delete it from here, now that device will go back to defaulting to the global threshold. Right? Well, let's actually just delete this because we don't need it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the administrator role. Before we continue, let's just go through one max page here. Every user account has this page. It's just their account page. It shows just the information about their account and what profiles they have. They can also change their own password here and here if needed. Okay, so just that's one page. It's simple as that. Next, let's log out.